So ever since I can remember, I've been a massive boxing fan. I think one of my first ever memories is of Mike Tyson fighting Pinkland Thomas. So that would have been 1987. So I would have been 6 years old, and they were showing a rerun on a Saturday morning. And my dad had mentioned Mike Tyson to me, and obviously at the age of 7, 8, he was an absolute god to me. I remember him fighting Frank Bruno. He was a British fighter. And then I remember him losing to Buster Douglas, and I was absolutely devastated. I just turned 9 years old, 1990 I think it was, and yeah, I was absolutely heartbroken. And even as a young kid, I was massively into the history of boxing, the old time fighters. I used to love reading about Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis, Jack Johnson, Jack Dempsey, all these great fighters from the past. And they were unbelievable characters. The fighters of the late 19th century, the early 20th century, were just men that don't exist anymore. These type of people do not exist anymore. Like the Boston Strong Boy, John L. Sullivan, who was I think he was the first ever gloved heavyweight champion. He then lost the title to a man called James Corbett, Gentleman Jim Corbett, who was one of the first pioneers of the sweet science, the art of hitting and not getting hit. And he in turn then lost it to a man called Jim Jefferies. Now, Jim Jefferies retired, and the title passed hands to a guy called Marvin Hart, Tommy Burns, then eventually to the legendary Jack Johnson. And they pulled Jim Jefferies out of retirement to fight Jack Johnson because he was the great white hope back then. This was in a time of obviously racial difficulties in the States, and he was brought out of his alfalfa farm to fight Jack Johnson, and he got absolutely paggered. But Jim Jefferies was an incredible man, and I think his greatest achievement was not something he did in the boxing ring, because Jim Jefferies was one of a kind. He used to own grizzly bears, which he used to wrestle with, by all accounts. He was a big, barrel-chested bird of a man, but the greatest achievement of Jim Jefferies was that he once cured himself of pneumonia by drinking a full case of whiskey in 2 days. Now that to me is the most alpha male thing I've ever heard in my life. It's the greatest medical intervention you will ever hear of. He cured himself of pneumonia by drinking a full case of whiskey. I hope there's a statue of Jim Jefferies wherever he lives, not to remember his amazing achievements as heavyweight champion, but to remember that great feat of that medical miracle that he performed. Unbelievable. And men like that don't exist anymore, do they? You couldn't imagine a heavyweight champion of today's era pulling out a fight with a chest infection and then smashing 6 litres of Jack Daniels to get over it. Just incredible. And like I say, the stories of these old fighters, they're just brilliant to read. And yeah, like I say, I was inspired by boxers all my life, and I love doing the training. I love hitting the bag after my deadlift sessions, and that's what I did today. Worked up to a decent deadlift, 220 kilograms, and then did 8 2-minute rounds on the bag. Finished off with a freestyle burnout, which I didn't time. I just levered the bag for as long as I could. And then I finished off with 3 sets of 12 of these straight arm sit-ups, which are really tough. I don't know if I'm doing them 100% correct, but these really work the abs. So another good session there, good conditioning session. Really enjoyed that, and that was it for today.